Welcome once again, my dear friends, in this midweek meditation on a psalm. It's the first week in Advent. And so, as we begin to look forward to this moving out into what new things God's going to do in your life in the midst of such challenging times, what I want to do is to just have us become still, aware of each other's presence, listen to the silence as we will in just a moment or two, and allow ourselves to just become still before this powerful, powerful Psalm 48. So, as we usually do, let's just I invite all of you to become still. Stop. Physically. Center yourself in whatever posture you find yourself wanting to assume. In a moment, we're going to just listen to the pure silence for about 30 seconds, which is just a brief taste of what it would be like to be in silence. I was thinking yesterday of there's a silence within the silence. And so it's my hope that we might be able to touch some of that space so that we can hear this psalm echoed for, who knows, 2,500 plus years of meditating on this psalm. So we become relaxed, we become still, we wait upon the Lord. A great word for Advent, waiting for the assurance that God is going to speak to us. And now for about 30 seconds, we're just going to be in silence together. Thank you for participating in that. And now, as we usually do, I'd like to share with you a 1-minute fire starter that I designed some years ago for families that have children on Psalm 48. It's called The Temple of Time. Like drilling a well to get water, I love to drill into words to find their root meanings. The word temple is a good example. The root tem means to stretch. It comes from the time when buildings were going to be built. A string was stretched around the area where the building or temple was to be erected. We get words like tension, attention, and intention from this root. To attend to something means that I stretch my mind to focus on the object of what I'm thinking about. Time can be like a temple. I like to look back on an experience and see the time frame around which it is contained. Sometimes I'll jot a note in my journal. I can step back and see the whole experience at once, like looking at a temple or church from a distance. This psalm is a perfect prayer to think about and thank God for the sacred times and spaces in my life. Here now, Psalm 48, in the New Revised Standard Version, which approaches the way in which, with some adaptations to good understanding of the original words, that would echo in people's hearts. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God. His holy mountain, beautiful in elevation, is the joy of all the earth. Mount Zion in the far north, the city of the great king. Within its citadels, God has shown himself a sure defense. Then the kings assembled. They came on together. As soon as they saw it, they were astounded. They were in panic. They took to flight. Trembling took hold of them there, pains as of a woman in labor, as when an east wind shatters the ships of Tarshish. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God, which God establishes forever. We ponder your steadfast love, O God, in the midst of your temple. Your name, O God, like your praise, reaches to the ends of the earth. Your right hand is filled with victory. Let Mount Zion be glad. Let the towns of Judah rejoice because of your judgments. Walk about Zion. Go all around it. Count its towers. Consider well its ramparts. Go through its citadels, that you may tell the next generation that this is God, our God, forever and ever. He will be our guide. The joy and the pride of those folks who looked to the city of Jerusalem and who looked to the beautiful temple that was built by Solomon. We need also to appreciate that there's something more than the physical city and the actual temple, which is no more except for the Wailing Wall. That there's something more going on for us, that Jerusalem is a symbol, a heavenly place. I would like to share with you a passage from Elie Wiesel, who was a Jewish man who wrote a book called Night, powerful witness of what he experienced in the Holocaust. And he has this to say about Jerusalem. The face yet hidden, the sap and blood of all that makes us live or renounce life. The spark flashing in the darkness, the murmur rustling through shouts of happiness and joy. A name, a secret, for the exiled, a prayer. For all others, a promise. Jerusalem, 17 times destroyed, yet never erased. The symbol of survival. Jerusalem, the city which miraculously transformed man into pilgrim. No one can enter it and go away unchanged. The one who entered that city was Jesus. He was crucified in the midst of that city. And by his death, we look now to a new Jerusalem. Not just later when we die, that heavenly Jerusalem, but a heavenly Jerusalem that exists now. And constantly during this pandemic, it's been my joy and my passion to try to find meaning in the absence of the evidence of our own temple, our church, or whatever church you would go to. The absence of that serves to increase the spirituality and the quietness and the silence of our temples. Our temples. I mentioned in that meditation at the beginning how architects, and I guess they do something similar today with surveyors, they mark out the place where a house is going to be built. They stretch maybe a physical line or some way, or a laser line that will mark out where the building is going to be. I invite you to take a look at Google Maps and your address and zoom up to look at your house from up high, kind of heavenly perspective. Look at it from on high and know this is the place right now that is a very special sanctuary a very special temple in which you live. And even though it might seem forced because of isolation, there are some wonderful ways in which solitude can really help us to appreciate. I'd like to commend to you and recommend to you a beautiful essay in the New York Times that occurred on November the 28th. It's written by Kelsey Osgood and is entitled What We Can Learn from Solitude. And it's really about a movement headed by Paul Fredette and Karen Carper Fredette in their property in Hot Springs, North Carolina. There's a movement, and they have a website that allows people that want to go deeper into solitude to connect in some way. This particular couple live in a little house 18 miles from the nearest city of about 600 or 700 people. It's an excellent article, and if you look at the search field in the New York Times on topics like solitude, you might be able to dive in deeper into what it means to be isolated. We usually associate it, I can't do this, I can't meet with my family, I can't do this. But really, it's in the quietness of being able to address the inner solitude. St. John tells us that the Word was made flesh and dwelt amongst us. Jesus is the temple. Jesus lives inside of you. Jesus is one with you. Another theme I'd like to suggest is to look at ways in which we can take a kind of verbal snapshot of something that moved you or something that could move you if you were to express it. Perhaps you've all heard of haiku poetry. It's a Japanese form of poetry which has been adapted, and it usually has it's short, concise wording and a reference to nature. No punctuation. It just juxtaposes things together so that you can see and join it together. When I was in the seminary, we had a very great English teacher, and he would encourage us to write observations. Just look at something and write a brief phrase about what it is that you might be seeing. And sometimes, as I've experienced, and you perhaps have too, when we write something, it begins to unfold as we write, as we express. Sometimes when I'm texting a message out, I'll start with the audio. It's just spontaneous things come out that, oh, this is going to be good for me to send out in the text as speech gets transferred to text. So I hold that out to you as a possible ways of doing that to allow yourself to really enter the sacred temple within you where God dwells. I want to thank you once again for joining together in this weekly meditation, this weekly encounter with God's Word. And I pray that as you hear this psalm and you realize how it's understood as Jesus as the inner temple and the tent within, that you'll join with the Spirit of Jesus and maybe express a few lines of your own psalm. As I close this, I'd like to offer what I call Bible breaths. They're like haiku in a way. They're just brief distillations. So here are 4 that I'll close with prayerfully with you from this psalm. From verse 2, you are the joy of all the earth. From verse 9, pondering your steadfast love. From verse 10, you reaching across the earth. From verse 14, you are my guide forever. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.